for sure, the bigger the better. If we ever get to a level where we're playing big stages and can I want to use as much pyro as we can if we're ever able to. I'm all about that. I mean, we're already building new stage props and stuff for this next album, and it's a little more extravagant than what we've done in the past. But I'm all about it. I mean, yeah, bands like that, or if you look at Dissection's final shows, it's very big imagery on stage. Yeah, no, man, I'm all about that.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to episode 170 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I am visiting with my friend Scott Taysom of Cloak. He came on the podcast to talk about their brand new upcoming record, Black Flame Eternal, which is going to be dropped by Season of Mist Records. We spoke about the music industry. We spoke about performance. We spoke about all sorts, including Metallica, which I was reminded by my fellow horseman of the podcast Apocalypse over on the Necromaniacs podcast that somehow Metallica does seem to be a recurring theme on the show, hence the t-shirt that I'm wearing today. But great catching up with Scott as always. The new Cloak record is absolutely crushing. So when that does come out, you guys are going to be thoroughly impressed. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Scott is always welcome on the show. So he will be coming your way shortly. When that's done, don't go anywhere though, because as usual, I will be delivering a blistering installment of my weekly news rant, where I will go on to Metal Storm, check out the latest metal news headlines, listen to some music, give you my opinion. And we will also delve into a couple of more spicy topics. There's a new Immortal single doing the rounds, so we will be talking about that and a whole lot more later on in the show. If you're new to the podcast and you like what I do, make sure that you elbow drop the subscribe button off the top rope on your platform of choice. Follow me on social media and check out the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store. 2 designs I've got up there with more to come. I've got the classic logo design with no wimps, no mercy on the back. And then I've also got the fantastic Jason Papiat goat design. And those are already selling really well. Thank you very much to everybody who has supported the Teespring store so far. Like I said before, every single cent that I make off of that gets plowed straight back into the podcast. So it's not going towards old Smith's Ferrari fund. When Into the Necrosphere is done, don't think that you need to walk around your house confused, alone, afraid, wondering what you're supposed to do with yourself for the rest of the week, because for the remainder of the week, my fellow horsemen of the podcast Apocalypse have you covered. On a Monday, my brother Brandon Legion brings you Horrible 666. Every Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill brings you his long-running weekly podcast, Everything Went Black. He returns with my favorite podcast of the week every Thursday, Necromaniacs, alongside his co-hosts Jeff Kashid and Mike Scandado. And then every Sunday, the Reverend Carl Hikara brings you the arcane, the weird, and the esoteric on Soul Knox. So no need to fall for the predations of the far right or the far left. You've got balanced, high-quality, high-value entertainment to keep you company all week long with the horsemen of the podcast Apocalypse. On that note, let's welcome back to the show Scott Taysom of Cloak. So nice to see you again, man. We didn't actually plan this, but it has been literally a year to the day that we first spoke to each other. Because the first episode the first episode you and I did went up on the 22nd of March last year, and I just noticed the recording date on that was the 16th. So
that's wild.
Happy friend anniversary.
Yeah. I saw that on the on my memories as well, either on like Instagram or Facebook whenever we did it. So that's really funny.
Well, dude, I mean, a lot has happened for you guys in the time that we spoke. I mean, let's just kind of dive straight into the album first and foremost. So I've listened to the advance that Katie sent to me quite a few times.
Cool.
The first question I've got is, where did you get those pipes from? Those singing pipes?
Oh man, it's a bit more extreme on this third go around. I think it just fit where the songs were going more, and I had more to throw in there. I had more to experiment with just the highs and the lows of my vocals, and I don't know. I mean, I've been doing vocals in bands since I was 13, and they've gone through many ups and downs and changes. Started what do you sound like when you're 13, and then go to 16 and that's different, and then 20 when I started experimenting more with like lower range vocals. I was 19 or 20, and then kind of from then on, messed around with like incorporating more like mid-range and highs into the lows, and so it's been a journey for sure, but they're definitely, I think they're honed in a lot more on this third album than even on, say that the second or the first, especially. They were a little more untamed on the first record, and which could be cool too, but I like the distinction on where they've gone for this new stuff.
Well, the thing that I was most impressed with is I remember thinking it when I watched the Invictus video for the first time, was when the clean singing came in. And you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not really something you did on any of the other records, correct?
Not really. Like I experimented a little bit on Tempter's Call, for instance, but it was more not as belted out, clean. And there's definitely more of that on this album. There's a whole chorus on Eye of the Abyss, for instance, that's clean and pretty soft, actually. Like the softest that I've had to sing, and that was all just experimentation in the studio. It's the clean stuff's a lot harder to make sure that you pull off live as well, because on the record it's layered, it's you doing it, but it's many layers, so it sounds nice and thick. And when it's when it's us in the practice space or in the live setting, you have to almost add more oomph behind. Like, you have to really get it from the diaphragm, and it's almost a little more raspy live. We've played Seven Thunders live so far, and that has a clean singing part in it. And I almost have to do it a little bit different on the stage than I did on the album. But I like to change stuff up a little bit for the live setting anyway. But yeah, man, like it's definitely a new territory I'm heading into there. But I'm glad you like that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it sounds fantastic. I like, because when I heard it on Invictus, I was like, this sounds superb. And then as I was listening to the record, I got to Heavenless as an example, and I was like, I can't remember, like, unless I'm absolutely losing my fucking marbles here, I can't remember Scott doing this much clean vocals on any of the other stuff that Cloak has put out. But just again, what impressed me was like how seasoned you sound, but also like how powerful your voice sounds. Now, obviously, you've kind of given the game away and said it's studio trickery. I
add a low, a high, and then a middle, so it's beefed up, obviously. And I think a lot of people really do that.
I was teasing you about this.
But definitely no fucking auto tuning and all that.
No.
Oops. I think I
yeah, you had a hiccup there, but
all right,
fine.
I'm back.
Yeah, you were saying about no auto tuning.
Yeah, none of that. So we typically do like a low, middle, high. So Heavenless, for instance, you've heard it, people haven't heard it yet, but that's a full acoustic track, actually. It's more of a experimental soundscape, maybe, in a way. And I almost look at it as the second part of a song called Passage on the first record. That was like an all clean guitar, like talking vocal, clean song, more of that kind of soundscape style. But this one is, it's all acoustic and some like, tom drums behind it and stuff. That was actually an acoustic riff I've had for a while, since The Burning Dawn, and I finally found a place for it on this album. It wasn't really even supposed to be like a full acoustic song or anything, but in the demo process of writing everything, I thought it was a nice fit.
I love stuff like that, though, because I love it when one of the things that immediately came to mind when I heard that's actually not even a black metal band, it's Crowbar. On Symmetry in Black, they did a track that was I can't even remember what it was called. I'll need to remind myself, but it's this kind of acoustic break, but it's such a nice way to sort of break up the record. It actually enhances the heaviness of what's to come. And and it's just that variety I find it just really helps. The song is called Amaranthine or Amarantine.
Okay.
But yeah, similar sort of just that that slight left turn, that slight swerve that the music takes, and then it's straight back to the heaviness thereafter. But I felt this was kind of the same way, and obviously where that's sequenced, I think it also really helps build up to the climax of the record. I know you're a big old school fan, same as me, so I know like album sequencing is probably a reasonably important thing to you too.
Yeah, we typically have. Yeah, we try to do. There's kind of been like an interlude song on every record we've had. One of them, on Dawn was a full instrumental. There are actually two. So there was an instrumental on the first record with that song Passage, which is more of the soundscape before the climax of the final song. So on Black Flame Eternal, this new record, the title track closes the album, and then the track Heavenless that we're speaking of is that kind of prelude to that climax of the album. So yeah, it's the sequencing is definitely there's almost like a continuity to it for our records, which is kind of cool. But it's not like a trilogy or anything like that, but it definitely is important to sequence all the songs right. And I mean, like speaking of the old school, Metallica on Ride the Lightning and Master both had those kind of ender. Is it like second to last or the ender?
Second to last.
Yeah, Orion and then Cthulhu. So stuff like that, is always going to be influential. Stuff in the back of our minds for sure.
Yeah. So just staying on the clean singing, have you ever had the temptation to do anything that is maybe a bit of a departure from the heavy stuff, or where you can use your voice a lot more?
Yeah, I mean, there's no boundaries in Cloak. So maybe one day there will be that full on clean singing song, but I'll admit it's difficult. Like it's very difficult to do it live and make it sound right without, like we mentioned, a lot of bands even use studio trickery live on stage, and we don't really have those means, and I don't think I'm really interested in doing that at the end of the day. But I mean, you never know, man. I think it's endless what we really can do, or we don't want to shut ourselves off to anything, but we'll see. I think if a song calls for it, like I'm not closed off to that idea at all, but we'll see.
But no, like Me and That Man style blues project in your near future.
No, I don't think so. I don't even think what's funny is it's really hard for me to get my voice to sound good, clean. It's it took a lot of practice, is what I'm saying. So I've never been a singer like that at all, and I literally had to sit in my house and with an acoustic and really try to hone in on like hitting notes with my voice, because I've always hit notes with the guitar, but trying to hit that octave with your voice is a whole nother beast. And I'm completely self-taught, so it's like nothing that I had lessons for or anything. So I really had to, for instance, Eye of the Abyss with that clean chorus, I had a completely different clean singing section in that chorus on the demo. And when we went into the studio, it was actually, I was off key, and I couldn't really tell in the demo as much, but in the studio I was like, yeah, that is not the right key. So we rewrote the entire lyrical chorus section of that in the studio, which I've never done before. It was sort of nerve wracking, but on the drive home from the studio, I knew I had to write a new chorus for the next day, came up with it in my head, came back into this room right when I got home, and laid it out on a demo, sent it to the producer, and we liked where it went after that. But yeah, that's just an example of, when you hear things in the studio on nice clear speakers, you realize how bad you can sound sometimes, and then you need to really go another direction with it. But like hitting those notes and being in key is something that, as a metal and a punk musician, you don't really think of, but it's kind of there. So. And
it's also about conveying the appropriate emotion. I had Kane Kressel from the Amenta on the podcast last year. And one of the things that we spoke about, he does vocal coaching for people. And obviously, he can do, crazy screams, crazy growls. But I think the thing that he seems to find most exciting is clean vocals. You mentioned something super interesting to me about getting male vocalists to exhibit more emotion when they're singing. And he said one of the things he gets his students to do is to practice singing to songs that were originally sung by women. Oh, so, cool. It could be like Chelsea Wolfe or Tori Amos or PJ Harvey. Tori Amos, I would, just my personal view, it's my a long distant ex's favorite musician, so I don't approve of that. Yeah, Chelsea Wolfe, PJ Harvey, I'm good with that. But yeah, he was saying, it's a like getting guys to do that takes them completely out of their comfort zone, and so he says it helps kind of strip back some of those layers. I'm assuming you're not spending your time singing PJ Harvey songs at your house.
No, but that's an interesting point and a really good idea, actually. So, yeah, that's a cool idea. And Chelsea Wolfe obviously has that cool haunting vocal style that would be, that would probably be really helpful for people to look at and try to emulate when they're practicing, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, she's absolutely fucking amazing, I have to say. I think she's one of those people where, she can have a record where maybe there's 2-3 songs that aren't good, but there's like when she's on, she's really, really on. I mean, she's phenomenal. Yeah,
I've never seen her. Max, our guitarist, saw her a couple of years ago, said it was a cool show. But I've never actually seen her live.
Yeah. But this record, I love the way that you guys described the album when you were when you sort of rolled out Invictus for the first time. In that it's something that sort of pays attention to your past, but helps forge the path for the band in the future. Yeah. And I definitely, you can get a sense of some of the influences that are on this record, but you definitely get a sense of, I think all the elements of the band come together a lot more seamlessly for me on this album than it did previously. No, and I like the previous records, but yeah, it's like Cloak is starting to grow up.
For sure. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And like for me personally, it's hard for me to go back and even listen to the first two, not because I don't like them, but because I just feel so strongly about where the direction where this new one is going, and the songs just they have they just punch so much more. It's just a really punchy album and a really cohesive song structure wise. It's very cohesive and more to the point, but also it's a lot harder to play live because it actually is a lot more intricate, a little more complicated. Sean's drumming on this record is pretty crazy. Yeah. Even if he's not blasting, doing crazy shit the entire time, but that's definitely there too. But he's an interesting drummer in the way that he does fills and transitions and things like that. And there is a lot more double bass on this record. So as a drummer as a bandmate of my drummer, sorry. It's my favorite drumming that he's done for sure. So
I pointed that out when I did the react for Invictus as well, where it was like, again, it's that variety that he brings in. I can't stand drums that are just, no matter how fast the guy is playing, if it's just that sort of monotone, holding a beat or holding a blast, there's just nothing about that I find exciting. I think that's why I dislike quite a lot of thrash drumming as well. It's kind of, you sort of have that, the typical like, but it's just, there's nothing exciting. There's nothing crazy happening that I want to sort of keep that holds my attention. And I thought on Victus, and it's true of the rest of the record too. He's a very creative drummer, and he tends to kind of think outside the box quite a lot. I think in the way that he approaches, extreme metal drumming.
He really does, and it's because his background was in various hardcore bands and just different sort of metal infused bands in the past. But yeah, man, like he really does think outside of the box, like you said. And there'll be parts where, I wrote the riff. I'm like, let's do this beat over that. And he does something completely different. For instance, the breakdown section in Invictus, where it's just a boom, da-na-na, boom, where the big toms are hitting. That was supposed to be like more of like a slow beat over that. And in the practice space, he said, no, let's try this. And it's like one of my favorite parts on the record, one of my favorite parts we've ever written, and it's, you know, it's because he has such a rhythmic mind, and he's like you, where when he hears boring drums like that, he just like, I've never heard a drummer hone in on drummers of other bands so much as Sean, but it's because he's so rhythmic, and yeah, that shit drives him nuts. And me too. I don't like that monotone just the whole time. You know, depending on the band, but like, yeah, it gets pretty old after a while. And it's the same with vocals. I don't like monotone vocals. You know, it's one singular pitch the entire time. I like to convey a bit of you know, emotion in there, or urgency, or like even like angst in certain parts. And so I think we have always aimed for dynamic when we play.
Well, I think with drumming in particular, I think it's only the very best drummers that are able to inject that sort of character into the way that they play, where, you know, the very best of them, you can hear it's them playing, you know, without anybody telling you it's them. But you and I, a great example, you and I both fans of Danzig. Yeah. Johnny Kelly, when he plays with Danzig, to me is like that's the perfect example of what I mean. He makes every single song sound better because he's there.
Yeah.
He's got this kind of loose, really groovy way of playing. Yeah. He speeds the songs up slightly, but whether it's old songs, whether it's new songs, everything just sounds fucking sensational. But you know immediately it's him playing.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, actually, that just reminds me again though of I saw Danzig play in 2018 doing the first record in its entirety, and Johnny was playing drums.
Oh wow! I didn't know he did, because I saw him in 2018 doing the third record in its entirety at Psycho Vegas, but I didn't know he did the first one over in Europe. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it was the first one, but yeah, absolutely amazing. The best I ever saw was him doing some of the 666 Satan's Child songs, actually, like when he does Unspeakable and stuff like that. He probably speeds it up like half a step, so it sounds just like really like pummeling, really driving, and I personally have a soft spot for those albums anyway.
So fun fact, the guy who we got to mix our record did Satan's Child. He mixed it.
Oh really?
Yeah, Cameron Webb. He did the last like 7 or 8 Motorhead records, all of it. He produced it and engineered it. But yeah, he mixed that Danzig record. So I obviously was asking him every story I could about that experience, and there were some pretty funny stories with it, but we won't go into all that. But yeah, he mixed that record, which is cool.
What story do you have? A story that you know that's not under NDA that you can share?
Well, the one that we always laugh about is, you know, of course I was like, all right, tell me what it was like working with Danzig, because I'm a total fanboy. And he was like, well, he came in, he didn't like what I was doing. He said, you know, this and that. And I said, you know, Glenn, I just don't know if I'm the guy for the job then. And Cameron was about to sort of walk away, and apparently Danzig goes, wait, hold on a second. Turn the hi-hat up. And he turns it up. He goes, now that's a mix. Like, I have no idea what that would have done to the song, but apparently that's what made him happy.
Dude, I love that album. I did a crossover episode with one of my fellow horsemen of the podcast, Apocalypse, a while back on some of our favorite Danzig albums, and I would actually say my favorite Danzig record, 666 Satan's Child.
Oh, cool!
I love it.
Yeah,
and I mean, I got into Danzig on How the Gods Kill. So I've, you know, it's not like I'm a Johnny come lately that, you know, sort of discovered Danzig later on. I've been a Danzig fan for many years.
Yeah,
but 666 Satan's Child and Illuciferi, both just incredible records.
Yeah,
highly underappreciated in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll have to go back to. I've listened to Satan's Child a few times after I knew that Cameron had mixed it, because to be honest, I don't think I've listened to the whole thing before that. I have listened to 7, the Illusphaeri. That one is definitely good. It's got some good tracks on it, and then Death Red Sabbath is a kind of a cool later one that he did too.
Yeah, I agree. I would even say that not the Elvis record, but the actual studio record that he did before then. There's a song on there called Skulls and Daisies, which is genius. I mean, it's like
which album? Black Lady Crown.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That record's hit or miss. It has some like Devil on Highway 9. I don't know about that song, but It's got.
I must admit, actually, I quite like that song.
Oh yeah, Last Ride is kind of cool. I know.
Last Ride is brilliant.
Yeah, I know like Max like that song, and it's just his production choices are kind of weird lately with the really brash snare sound and some of the guitar tones, but whatever you want to do.
No, that is true, but I think I'm always going to be a little biased when it comes to Danzig.
Yeah, man. I
can't help it.
Nothing wrong with that. I just got a Danzig tattoo last October. I mean,
Oh yeah, what did you get?
I got the upside down cross with the skull across it, like his symbol from probably, I guess, How the Gods Kill. Or no, that would have been Danzig 2. Actually, I think he started using. I got it on right above my knee.
Yeah. Have you met him?
No, that's a goal of mine for sure. I know Christian from Necrosphere and all those guys got to hang with him on that tour. I really would like to, just to tell him thank you for all the music. So
yeah, and just don't mention anything about his movies.
No. Did you have you ever run into him?
No, I did an interview with him years ago for a music website that I was writing for called Chronicles of Chaos.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Yeah, fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I've told this story on the podcast a lot, but there was a so in those days you would hang out with people from other magazines and other websites and stuff, and invariably after a few drinks people start talking about who's the biggest dickhead that you've ever interviewed, and every single person would say Danzig, and they were like, midway through the interview he stood up and left. He didn't want to answer my questions, and he and I ended up talking for an hour and a half, 2 hours. He actually asked Regain Records to call me the next day and thank me for the interview. It was awesome. Right when Circle of Snakes came out. Oh, cool. Awesome guy. We spoke about a bunch of stuff. Like we spoke a lot about his time singing with Johnny Cash, and like meeting him, and like he had met Johnny Cash, met Roy Orbison, and met all these like old legends. We were talking about that. We were talking a lot about his views on music, and he was just a great guy. The main impression I took away from him is that he's just not somebody who's going to suffer fools, and I think his expectation based on a few things he said to me. One of them after I stopped recording was that the people I think he felt like he generally got exposed to in the music industry are fools. And right. I can kind of see where he's coming from with that. So
I think if you're genuine and cool to him, he's going to be cool to you. I think people try to push his buttons in the past. There was footage of a guy coming up after a show. Oh, you don't like your camera? You don't like a camera in your face? And Danzig put him in a headlock because he said, "Yeah, I don't want a camera in my face." So it's like, shit. It's like if you're fucking with anybody like that, they're gonna beat your ass. So it's just, of course, he's had his moments where this and that, but like everybody has their days. So I don't know. People treat
everybody made this big deal about the whole Northside Kings incident.
Yeah.
But you also look at that and you go, okay, he pushed the guy, but then the guy did kind of sucker punch him. So
yeah,
and also by that point he was what, 50 years old.
Yeah.
So
that dude was huge. So it's just like, who gives a fuck? Like who even cares about that band? So it's just whatever.
Oh, exactly. No one's listening to Northside Kings now. People are always going to be listening to Sam Hain and Danzig.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
But no, I've got nothing but good things to say about him. I thought he was a great guy. I thought he was a real gentleman. That's cool, the best way to describe him. He's a honest to goodness gentleman, and I think
he's professional.
He just doesn't care for people that don't exhibit the same tendencies.
Yeah, and that's funny. Because my buddy from Bewitcher, the drummer Eris, used to write and stuff for magazines, and he did a phone interview with him and said he was totally cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the getting back to the new Cloak record, what was the time frame over which you guys wrote this? Because when you and I spoke, I think you mentioned you guys were pretty much done with the record already.
Yeah.
But obviously, I know you would have had limits around how much practicing you could have done over lockdown. I can't remember how stringent it was in Atlanta, but I'm sure it was just as shit as most other places.
Yeah, it was. I've heard stories of other places. It wasn't probably the worst here, but no, honestly, we practice in my basement, and all of us live within 15, 20 minutes of each other around Atlanta. So we met up and it was fine. But So
you don't, I hope you're not admitting that you defied the lockdown.
Oh, we totally did. But yeah, I started writing it a little before the pandemic was even announced. I started writing it in January 2020. And actually the first riff I wrote for the album was that beginning thrash riff of Invictus. And so I knew that I liked where that was going. I knew it was kind of going to be a harder album. So yeah, I started writing that, started demoing. By the time March hit, it was a shit show and everything. So, we didn't expect that it would be this whole thing. So I don't really like calling it a pandemic album or whatever. We had the time, and we had already started writing anyways, because we had some time off from playing shows. So yeah, January 2020, and then we finished the songs, the demos with the lyrics probably by May of 21. So it took about a year and a half to write. Practice all that summer, booked the studio time for, we actually started recording August of 21. Then we started in the studio, then we had to tour in October when things opened up. So that put a little bit of a hold on it. And then the holidays put a little bit of a hold on it with some people traveling. And then, it was a long process. I mean, so we finished recording it with the vocals and everything in February. So it was like a 6-month process with those breaks in between. So realistically, maybe like 4 months. I wouldn't want to do it that long again. I would try to keep it at 3 maximum. But yeah, and then the mixing process was a bit of it was pretty difficult. So we finished mixing it with Cameron August of 21, because we had a bit of a wait on that, because we had some touring and we had to find him who was going to mix it for us. So, and then as we all know, the plants have been fucked from everything still for some reason. So, all the backups. So vinyl probably went into production in September 22. And then it's coming out in May. So it's
Jesus Christ. So it's like about a 6-month, 7-month backlog,
something like that. So it's it's going to be essentially, I think I was getting some of my years mixed up, but yeah, we did. So we started in August of 21. It's going to come out almost 2 years later in May of 23. So yeah. That's pretty insane.
Well, I was thinking specifically of the vinyl. You saw Metallica bought their own vinyl pressing plant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So the news came out, I think it was like 2 days ago. They've sold something like 900,000 records over the last, I think it might be as short as the last year. And so they've now bought their own vinyl pressing plant. So album number 4, you might want to get in on some of that Metallica action.
Yeah, for real. Do you know where it is?
No idea. Hold on. Let me see the news headline. Vinyl. I mean, it makes sense, right? If it's taking 6 months to get what's name?
Yeah.
To get vinyl pressed. So it says here the band have purchased a majority stake in Furnace Record Pressing in Virginia.
Okay. Virginia.
So in the past, it's pressed a host of reissues from Metallica, including a box set of vinyl of their albums Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets. But yeah, I mean, I actually do think that's a good idea. I joked about it like back in the during the pandemic times when I was talking to bands, and I was like, someone somewhere in the metal scene needs to buy a pressing plant and just make that exclusively for metal bands. Sadly, as much as I like early Metallica, and I don't have an issue with the guys, I don't think they're necessarily going to give back to the underground and say, hey, Cloak, come and press your stuff here.
Probably not, unfortunately. So we played a show in Savannah this like 2 weeks ago at this small festival in Savannah, Georgia. It's like South Georgia. And James Hetfield's son was there because he lives in Savannah, because he went to an art school there, and his band played. And we chatted, and he's a really cool guy. He's like 10 years
old. Oh, really?
Old. Yeah. He had seen Cloak before, and he was a fan, and his band's called Bastardane. And we actually had this mutual friend in a weird situation, because his dad does PT for James and the rest of Metallica. So we were talking about that, and yeah, it was cool though. I had to break, character for a second there and be like, all right, it's crazy that your dad is James Hetfield, but anyway. And he was like, yeah, it's normal for me, but he was a really cool guy.
I was just about to say, can you imagine what life is like for that dude?
I mean, it's just wild because, that guy is a fucking legend. Just, absolute legend. So I had to say something.
It's interesting though, like that cool. him and Lars's son is, gone down the music route. Obviously, there's Corey Taylor's son is doing Slipknot Light, Junior Slipknot with that band Vended.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, like James Hetfield in particular, dude, I was watching. Don't know who did it, but someone took the trouble of remastering that entire Seattle show from 1989 that was in the live Shit Binge and Purge box set, and they've uploaded it to YouTube. I was watching that again, and I was like, back when James was still drinking beer, there was, in terms of like frontmen, there's not a single person on the face of the earth that comes anywhere close to him.
No,
not for performance, like both for performance and like just the way he manages a crowd.
Yeah,
it's fucking unbelievable.
That's my favorite concert footage of all time. I always bring up Seattle '89. I have the VHS tapes, the best. And yeah, he just could command that room so well and just was so fucking cool. To me, that was kind of their like coolest era. Just like they were just so on top of the game, just crushing it live. Still had the headbangs going before they fucked their necks up. And Jason was fucking unreal back then. Super energetic. That's my favorite show of all time. My favorite era of like their live footage. Not to say Justice is my favorite album. I like it a lot. I would say Master is my favorite, but just that era when they had those 4 under their belt. But there's even cool footage from 92 when after the Black Album came out and stuff, like the San Diego.
Oh, that San Diego 92 show is fucking great.
Yeah, it's almost just as good. So that whole like 89 to probably like 93 or whatever, they were just killing it.
Yeah, you should check out on YouTube. There's a Milton Keynes show from 1994. I'd say that's probably my favorite Metallica show I've ever seen.
Where's the city you said?
It's Milton Keynes. So it's Milton Keynes is a complete and utter dump in the UK, but they've got a really nice stadium, and bands play there from time to time. So Metallica played there. Oh, cool. But that's probably one of the best shows I've ever seen. But I've long contended. I think when they lost Jason, they really lost something from the band.
For sure.
His presence on stage. Robert is a fantastic bassist. There's no doubt about it. He seems like a nice guy too. Mm-hmm. But Jason just had a meanness on stage. Like there was like an intensity and an aggression. I loved when he did vocals. Like, my favorite Metallica song of all time, hands down, is Seek and Destroy. So when he did this, when he did the verses, it was just so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I just absolutely loved it.
And Creeping Death, when he did the almost death metal.
Die.
Yeah.
Die. So genius.
So good. Yeah. Creeping Death is that's one of my favorite ones from them for sure. But Jason fucking ruled, man. I know everyone, like Cliff, obviously total legend, but I kind of like them as a band with Jason in it, just because of that era. That show was just amazing to me to watch. But they're both from all the '80s shows. I mean, the Cliff Mall footage is really cool too. So.
Yeah, no, all of that's very cool, but I'm totally with you. I think that '89 show, I mean, again, there's like an intensity and there's like an aggression to that's incredible. But again, I stand in awe of James when I watch him manage that audience and the way that he commands the stage, the way that he expresses himself as a frontman. I just think is incredible. Did you see? Again, it's pretty shitty footage, but there's footage floating around of Pantera doing Seek and Destroy with Jason playing bass and doing vocals. So it's like, I think Dimebag does vocals on one verse, and then Jason does vocals on another, and I think Phil does the chorus.
Oh, cool.
Dude, I'll send it to you on Facebook when this is done. It's fucking brilliant.
That's awesome.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Was this back in the day or?
Yeah, it was like 1994.
Okay, cool.
Like 93, 94.
Oh, cool.
Pantera, sorry, Phil announces them, and it's like he like says Jason's on stage, and it's like, ladies and gentlemen, Pantalica, and then they start doing it. But yeah, Seek and Destroy is just always got this, like, no matter when they play it, even nowadays when they play it, it's got this kind of just loose, slightly punk, but just nasty old school vibe that I just I can't get enough of.
I love Kill 'Em All. That was the one that honestly got me into Metallica. Yeah, I mean, I'd heard the Black Album a ton and Master as a kid, but after being a hardcore punk guy for so long, and then hearing Kill 'Em All, I was like, oh yeah, this is just basically a punk record, but with thrash in it. So yeah, I mean, Kill 'Em All is so fucking good. I love listening to that one.
What's your take on the 3 new singles that have come out so far?
I think I only heard the first one. Maybe the second I might have checked out. It's okay. It's not like it's good. The first one is wasn't too bad. It's
Lux Eterna.
It's pretty it's pretty slick production and everything. It's it's not totally my cup of tea or anything, but I still have not seen Metallica, and I really need to.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, I've seen them twice, and I've been quite close to the stage for one of them, but like close enough, literally, where I could have grabbed onto Jason's leathers or his jeans or whatever he was wearing at the time.
So what year was that?
Which was quite cool. So this was 2005, I think. They played at the O2 Arena. It was like a special show for the members of the Metallica fan club, and I found out about it before the tickets went on sale. Promptly became a member of the Metallica fan club, and got myself tickets. And then I saw them again, I think 2019 at Twickenham Stadium. Awesome. That was an okay show, but I saw Rammstein 2 months later, and Rammstein mopped the floor with them. I mean, it was not even close.
You talked about how insane their shows are. I've never seen them live.
Nothing as good as that. But you seem to have, so for anyone that doesn't know, that has seen the video, you co-directed that Invictus music video. I love the vibe of that whole video, and you definitely seem to have a like, if I look at the band photos and stuff like that, you kind of have a good sense of aesthetics as well. Would you? I mean, obviously not going to do something on like Rammstein's level, but would you want to bring in some of that aesthetic element on stage? Maybe not like go completely overboard, but the way that bands like I mean, Mayhem is probably a little too extravagant as well, but you know what I mean, like just bringing in some of that vibe.
For sure, the bigger the better. If we ever get to a level where we're playing big stages and can I want to use as much pyro as we can if we're ever able to. I'm all about that. I mean, we're already building new stage props and stuff for this next album, and it's a little more extravagant than what we've done in the past. But I'm all about it. I mean, yeah, bands like that, or if you look at Dissection's final shows, it's very big imagery on stage. Yeah, no, man, I'm all about that. It's just, we're not at that level. We don't have the budget, and like even our music videos, it's no budget. It's just me and the other guys putting everything together. Max probably works the closest with me on all the videos. So we do all the set decorations and just put everything together for it. And we're about to film another one for the third single soon. So yeah, it's always been me editing all of our music videos. We actually shot them ourselves on the second album, and then close friends help us on when we need help shooting the rest of them. So yeah, it's all we're very DIY still. We never really needed a budget for that stuff, luckily, because I have like a film background, and Max does as well. So
well, you talk about DIY. Rammstein used to be like pretty DIY themselves. So there's like stories from the old days before they were a big band, where literally it would be them piling into a City Golf with all their pyro, all their gear, all in the same car, just going from city to city playing shows in Germany.
Wow.
So it all kind of starts somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, having like a production team behind you. I mean, even a band like Watain, they're huge, in their own regards, but they're still DIY, and they bring their own crew that are probably close friends of theirs, and they have pretty lavish stage settings, especially in Europe where they're allowed to do all of that. So yeah, man, I mean, the more we can do, the better. It's just, it's so tough with bands these days that are trying to come up and have like really not a lot of budget or even like a lot of room on stage with some of the stages that we're playing. So
yeah, I was going to ask you, like, especially post pandemic, how have you seen touring and just kind of the business side of music? How have you seen things change? There was a super interesting story that I want to get your take on as well that came out this past weekend. Igor played in London, and they basically refused to sell any merchandise at the venue because the venue, I think at the last minute, told them that they wanted 25% of everything that they made off of the merch, and Igor were like, "You can go fuck yourself. We're not doing that." But they mentioned that as an example of how difficult it has become to be a touring band, past COVID-19. How have you found things? Because, you guys have played a fair few shows since I've spoken to you.
To be honest, in the States, I don't see that much of a difference. We're not dealing with many setbacks. It feels like shows are coming back again full on. I saw Rotting Christ Monday with Guerilla, Uada, and Carrick Ongron, and it was.
Were you at the same show as Katie and Mike?
Nope, they were in Philly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think they saw it Saturday. I saw it Monday, and it was fucking packed out, and it was awesome. So here, not really. I hate the merch cut thing. I wish venues would stop doing that because it's going to get to a point where bands are going to start selling it out of their van or their trailer, as they should, because why? You're taking a cut from the door already. Why would you take a cut from the one thing that bands are making their money off of? Because we're barely making it off of ticket sales or album sales. It's t-shirt sales and merch. So to do that is criminal to me.
I totally agree with you, and I mean, I'm a full bore capitalist, but I would definitely say if you are the band, if you're the name on the marquee, you're attracting the people that are going to buy the booze that the club or the venue makes most of its money from. Then you can quite rightly go fuck yourself if you want a percentage of the band's income from their t-shirts. That is just fucking ridiculous.
For sure. And to take a fourth of it is crazy. Because I mean, we're already giving a fourth of what we make to management and booking. So it's just like it's so hard already. And that's crazy, man. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. And I think anyone in a band would, or fans at all, would completely disagree with that. I don't even think the venue people like to do that. It's just part of whatever contractual obligation they may have as that establishment. But that's fucking crazy to me. Like you said, they're already making so much on beer sales and ticket sales and all of that. So yeah, I mean, as far as setbacks after the pandemic though, I would say one is I've heard it's a lot harder to get over to Europe as an American band and maybe vice versa. I heard it's just a lot more expensive to do that, which is tragic because we need to get over there so bad on this record. And I hope we do. And I have faith that we will, but it's harder than ever right now. And so that's one thing that's difficult. So yeah, I really hope that gets a little better.
What's making it hard? Is it cost? Is it like vaccine restrictions?
I think it's cost. I don't even know about the whole vaccine thing. I mean, to me, that is almost a thing that's sort of faded away. I don't know if they're going to make you get boosters and all that shit anymore.
Well, I think once the news started coming out of, hey, by the way, the CDC is now investigating Pfizer for the connection between the booster and coronary heart disease. It's like I think they started. It was like Homer Simpson disappearing into the bushes.
Kind of sweep that under the rug and let's.
We're not talking about that anymore. We made our money now, so
move on to whatever else there is. So I mean, it's a new thing every month. That thing lasted for obviously a couple of years, but yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's costs and just getting over there in general, getting the tour booked, especially as a smaller band. We would like to get a nice support slot over there, and we're working on it constantly. It's just whenever we can. I spoke to someone at Season of Mist who was on the tour the other day. She's a Dutch girl that was with Guerrilla, and she agreed. I mean, she loved the record, and she said we need to get you guys over to Europe this year. And I said, yeah, we do. I totally agree. So hopefully we will
make it happen.
Yeah,
you guys playing with Guerrilla would be a pretty serious lineup as well.
Yeah, I agree.
That'd be a good fit, also, I think,
for sure. And they're not my total cup of tea on record, but live, I was extremely impressed. So maybe I'll be more of a fan of the records. They were really, really tight live, really heavy. The mix was spot on. Everyone played really well. The drummer was good. So yeah, I really liked that show for sure. And they were the opening band, and like they tore it up. It was really good.
Yeah. I've said before about that band. They have got. I'm not the biggest fan of Adam Darsky as a man, but like Nurgle had a certain energy about him when I met him the first time. It was way back with, I think it was Telemus 6 or Zoskia Cultus. Like there was an energy around him, and I said to the friend of mine that was with me at the time, I was like, I guarantee you that guy and that band's going to be fucking massive one day.
Yeah,
I get the same vibes from Guerrilla.
Yeah.
Like there's just something about them. I've had one of the guys on the out of the band on the show. You just get that vibe, and you get that sense anytime I hear anybody talk about them play live as well. I mean, with a band that's got the legacy of Rotting Christ, any band, or like 99.9% of bands are going to have a hard time opening up for them. And when you hear like feedback from people saying, "Fuck, they tore it up, they were incredible," then like there's something's brewing there.
For sure. Yeah, I think they're definitely growing. Yeah, and I agree. Like, Behemoth, it was, they're, look at them now, opening for Slipknot and huge bands like that. And then obviously pulling massive tours themselves. But, Nurgle's a funny character now. But maybe Instagram has a certain effect on people, but yeah.
I mean, my theory around that is twofold. One, when you're surrounded by people that tell you you're great all the time, you don't have anybody that's getting you to kind of, you don't have anyone that's keeping you humble, keeping you hungry. And then the other problem is, I think there's the thing that happens to almost all men, and I can relate because I'm in my early 40s now. You do start to fear that you're past your prime and that you've lost it, and some people take it harder than others. And I think people that are in bands, that have been, especially like the front man, somebody who's kind of used to being the center of attention. I honestly think a lot of this, the bullshit that comes out of his mouth comes from a place of bitterness. I think he sees what's going on in the scene, because he's never been somebody who's kind of, there's some people that are in music and they go, well, when I'm at home, I don't listen to any music, or I listen to country music, or it's something totally different to what they normally do. Like, Glenn Benton has said before, when he's at home, he listens to hip hop. So it's like some people disconnect themselves entirely from it, but some people keep their finger on the pulse. And I cannot see how objectively you can keep your finger on the pulse of the current black metal scene, and if you're Nurgle, not feel at least like, hey, there's quite a lot of bands that are breathing down my neck.
Yeah,
as far as like just pure musical talent is concerned.
Yeah, and he is someone that keeps up with it, like you said.
Yeah.
So which is cool. And I love Behemoth. I like the Satanist is one of my favorite albums for sure. But I don't know if I really appreciate kind of the older, and you've talked about on your show a lot, but the older guard talking about like don't form a band, just don't do it. Like I get it in a tongue-in-cheek way, like don't do it. This is fucking hard work. It's extremely hard. You probably won't make it to how you think you will. But why would you tell a person who is artistically inclined to not do something? I think that's
that was my point. It's like I met this dude, and he very clearly had a dream, and the dream was to start this band and to do whatever he's gone on to do since. I would assume he's probably exceeded what his dreams were originally.
For sure.
But then why would you deny somebody else the opportunity to do that? It doesn't matter how fucking shit the band is. It doesn't matter if 5 people listen to the record.
Yeah.
But that's what that person wants to do. They have, you should be encouraging them. You shouldn't be a fucking dick about it. Number one. Number two, I think like a lot of these bands, and unfortunately, Metallica falls under into this camp as well. Katie and I are aligned as far as our criticism of a lot of these older bands are concerned. Why aren't they taking younger bands out?
That's I completely agree with that, and yeah, it's frustrating to see because, I mean, even as someone in Cloak, I feel like we sort of have more of a pull with our music where it's a little more like excessive or accessible. I mean, to where we could go out with like a Slipknot or even like a Ghost or something like that. So and I don't think bands like that are really interested in doing that. So I know, people have talked about Slayer kind of bringing out the same old Bay Area thrash bands and not really as much as the underground. It's frustrating to see. I think Metallica almost has brought out probably more than Slayer even did, that, kind of more underground bands. But yeah, they're not really doing it. And I feel like that's how bands like that got discovered, because Metallica
that's exactly my point. It's
Ozzy, whoever else, they would tour with Wasp, and bands like that.
It's like they got the rub from these from bigger bands when they were in the underground. Why are they not paying that forward? Why are they are they not doing that for other bands?
Yeah, it's it might be a booking agent thing too, but I feel like they have enough power in the band to be like, no, I want to pick this band.
The thing about it is, what it makes me do is it makes me question their sincerity, and as soon as I start questioning somebody's sincerity, then I lose interest in them as an artist. Yeah, that's just the reality of it. So I like I said, I think it'd be the coolest thing on earth if Metallica went completely wild and was like, we're going to take Cloak out on tour with us. We're going to take Tombs, and by the way, just to scare the bejesus out of our fans, we're going to get Akhlys on the
yeah.
I mean, they could pull that off. They could have the most extreme band opening for them, and people wouldn't bat an eyelid. Some of them would go, "Oh, this is a bit heavy for me," but they would all go, "Oh, okay, this is pretty interesting." But like when I saw them, I can't remember who the band even was that opened for them. That's how innocuous it was. But it was just a load of fucking shit. Yeah. It was like they may as well have had Oasis opening for them. It would have been equally as musically edgy and extreme.
Right. Yeah, it's I don't even know who opens for them anymore. When you see their bills. I mean, I guess they're doing that little run with Pantera now, and maybe they'll have an opener, but I don't know. But yeah, it's frustrating. I know that Saki's from Rotting Christ is really good about handpicking his bands. I think, speaking of Gorilla, I think he handpicked them. I don't know. Maybe Nurgle is. I know he's brought Hordem Rife out on a couple Polish dates or some European dates, which is cool because Hordem Rife's like a true, Norwegian black metal band that's current. So he brought them out. I think we need to do away with a lot of these legacy bands, only playing with legacy bands, because how are you going to get new fans involved, younger generations involved? It's almost like it's kind of scary, when the legacy bands like Judas Priest and Maiden and Metallica die out. Who's really going to be next? I guess Slipknot, Behemoth maybe are next, but then who's after that? There's obviously like the Lamb of Gods who are going to be involved in that too, but
well, I mean, even they are pretty long in the tooth now, right? Randy's 51 or 52 years old, and aside from the fact that their last record is unlistenable shit, and that's coming from someone who's been a fan ever since Burn the Priest days. Yeah, the last record was it was a complete and utter load of unlistenable trash. Yeah, the thing is also like with a lot of those bands you just mentioned now. I mean, the clock's ticking on how long they're going to be around for. I'd say in the next 10 years, Judas Priest, Metallica, Iron Maiden, most of those bands are gonna retire, and the next generation of bands aren't nearly big enough, to kind of draw the same crowds that those bands do. And I think if anything were to happen that kind of decreases I don't want to say the size of the scene, but decreases the prospects for younger bands, then my gripe with the whole fiasco is it's going to be on the heads of these older bands that didn't do enough to give back to the scene. And I think if you've made a living off of something, you owe it to that scene to give back to it.
For sure. And at least just like one of the openers you could have chosen to be, you could have you got to have a big opener to draw to that bill, but like one of them could have at least been something a little bit, medium size, smaller bands. I don't know what it is. I think it's because it's so corporate now that maybe it's a political thing. We can't bring in a band like this to this bill. Like, who the fuck are they? And stuff like that, I think probably plays a part to it. Like a current tour that was just announced. It was the same situation. It was, I won't name names, but it was something that the only reason this one opening band was on it was because connections and a political thing. No one knows who this opening band is, but it's weird.
The thing is, fans see through that as well. So I get what you say about the argument's going to be, well, it's going to be how do we draw fans? But fans are going to go to see that band regardless. They'll see Metallica regardless. Back in the day, they would have seen Slayer regardless.
For sure.
Great example of a band that got onto a tour purely because of connections. Like the first time I saw Slayer in the UK was 2003, I think, or 2002, and they had the biggest load of crap opening for them that I've ever seen in my life. A band called Akhlys, which was like, imagine a ripoff of the worst songs that Evanescence ever wrote.
Oh man!
And the crowd gave them such a hard time. Eventually, the whole band just turned their backs to the audience and continued the show.
Yeah,
and the band is the crowd is just going ballistic, like "fuck off, you suck," throwing shit at the audience at the stage. God. I mean, it was like you have literally achieved nothing here. Like there's people that are going to go out and probably find CDs or find your merchandise and set it on fire after tonight.
What were they called?
Akhlys. Elis.
Wow.
I've never heard of them since, but what a fucking load of shit.
So that was definitely a booking agent situation, probably like a political thing.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But I mean, yeah, it's happened. It still happens, as you say. It's very much, a lot of these bands get on purely because people know people.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of bands retiring, I mean, Maiden, I think just this week kind of made hints at they're getting older and they're probably not going to be playing for that much longer, like 5, maybe 10 years. So that kind of sucks. I always like seeing them, one of my favorite bands, but I feel like
Steve Harris is 67 years old.
So yeah, so they're getting in there. So he's not that much younger than my dad, and I couldn't see my dad touring every night and doing that on stage. So it's like, yeah, I mean, those guys are crazy and in shape to tour still, which is cool. But
I tell you who is out of the old guard. Sorry for interrupting you, but who out of the old guard has really impressed me is so Rob Halford is one. He's 71 and still sounds great.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it's like we were talking on the podcast a while back when Jason Pepiat was on about Phil Anselmo being match fit for the Pantera tour and how he would pull it off. He sounds fucking great.
Yeah,
he really, really sounds good.
I saw some footage.
Surprisingly so. Like I was dreading how his voice would carry off those songs, but I mean, I would say he certainly sounds better than the last couple of years. In back when Pantera was still the original 4 guys playing.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s.
Right. Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, I saw some footage of that, and I would like it if they would come down to Atlanta with that lineup, but so far it's not. But I can't see them not coming. It's a pretty major city, so we'll see. I know they're not this year, but maybe I'll travel to one of the shows because I got to see Metallica before they're done at least once.
Yeah. How big is kind of the local scene in Atlanta? I mean, obviously, I know you guys have got Mastodon and you had Akhlys and bands like that, but like how big and how close knit is the local scene?
Yeah, so Akhlys was actually they're a Savannah band, so they weren't really in the Atlanta thing, but it's it's a nice scene. Like it's a nice size scene, and the underground. A lot of people always ask this about Atlanta, but actually, like we have really good shows here. We venues pack out. Like I said, Rotting Christ was packed out. It's almost frustrating to see so many people going to like a medium to big size, underground metal band like Rotting Christ, and then being like, well, where are they for all of these super underground shows like ours or other bands in our scene? Because all these people at the show would like it, so I don't know what they're missing. There needs to be some sort of promotion. I even talked about starting to bring handbills again and handing them out to people like I used to do, back in the day. And I feel like that really helps. But yeah, I mean, all shows at kind of bigger, medium-sized venues are always pretty packed out if it's a pretty well-known band. And then the more underground scene that we came up through is good. It's been good for at least the past 13 years. I mean, it really had like a really cool influx, like around 2010 and 11 with some bands that were going on around then. And then it's steadily, it ebbed and flowed a little bit, but it's steadily stayed pretty good. And we're starting to see some younger people come in now. So, I'm still in my early 30s, but I just turned 33. So now we're starting to get, because for so long I was that young generation of the 20s, and now I'm seeing people 10 years younger than me come in and they're starting to do some stuff. So it's pretty cool to see that. But it also feels weird because now it's like, oh man, I'm not the super young generation anymore.
You're not the young buck any longer.
Yeah, I'm in the middle. It feels kind of weird, but yeah, no, it's good, man. Like it's definitely one of the more prominent scenes of the South for sure. I mean, we always had a pretty strong like punk and metal scene. Atlanta is kind of unlike a lot of other cities in the South for sure. It's more of like a major city, and it doesn't feel ultra Southern until you kind of go on the outskirts. But yeah, it's cool here. I like it.
Yeah, you've grown up there, right? So it's been home for as long as you've been around.
Say that again. You broke up a little bit.
I say you grew up in Atlanta. That's kind of always been home for you.
Yep, I grew up in a town called Roswell, about 30 minutes north. So yeah, it's always been home, and my folks still live there. So yeah, it's a really it's kind of a close knit like community. A lot of the people here have grown up here as well. There's some transplants, but not many. But yeah, like we'll get people from like the Carolinas or Florida or maybe like Alabama kind of coming here. So it's sort of a hub for sure. And a lot of times bands will only go as south as Atlanta. They won't really go like deep into Florida. So like we get all the good shows and stuff too.
I can't stand the mosquitoes and the humidity.
Yeah, God, it's pretty fucking bad here. But a lot of bands will actually end the tours here because we have the huge international airport. So they'll fly back out of here.
And you guys are going to be doing your release show in Atlanta as well, right?
Yeah, on June 10th. And we'll actually have kind of a newer black metal band that is kind of, I think they're younger people who I've actually never even met yet, but I liked how they sounded. So I asked them to play. It's called Churus. And then we got longtime friends, Tombstalker, who are kind of like blackened death metal that are going to be playing it as well. So it's
awesome.
gonna be a good night. Yeah. And we're going to do up the stage, probably the most that we've ever done it. Hopefully we don't burn down the venue, so it'll be good.
You also went on tour with a longtime friend of mine, Mr. Mike Hill of Tombs. And I think when I spoke to you, you guys were sort of gearing up to go on that. How did it go?
It was good, man. It was short. I think it was only 6 days with them, but we got on fine, and it was a cool tour. Nothing overly crazy about it, but it was a good run. So I think we're running into them again when we play a festival in Baltimore, Hell in the Harbor Festival. I think they're doing like a pre-party show, so we'll run into him again.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
He's a fucking awesome dude. But that's another great bill as well. Like you guys and Tombs would be absolutely.
Yeah. They were good shows for sure. Yeah, they were good guys. So it'll be cool to see them again.
And then, beyond the release show, what are the other plans? I mean, obviously, if you guys come to Europe, you must let me know, and
for sure,
I will definitely make sure that I get my fucking lazy ass over to London.
Yeah.
But
how far are you from London?
I'm about 80 miles away. It's about a 2-hour train journey, but I mean the reason I'm so lazy about going into London is because if I do go, then I have to book a hotel and stay over. It's too much of a schlep to travel back. For the right bands and for a bro, I would do it, but
for sure,
not for most other people. So if you tell me you guys are coming, I'll make sure I'm there.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, I mean, other than that, we have a festival called the Carolina Chainsaw Festival. It's a new up and coming one with John from Incantation that booked it, and it's cool. It's Possessed is on it, Bat is on it, Incantation is on it, Cloak, Demiser, and then Exciter is also on it. So it's a cool little bill there for sure. That's early May, right before the album comes out. And I'm hoping that we actually have like vinyl and CD in hand a little bit early, because Katie said that we can definitely bring it to the festival to sell early. So that would be cool, because sometimes we do get it a bit, a couple weeks early. But
yeah.
And then after that, we have the release weekend. Actually, we're playing Hell in the Harbor Festival, which is sort of taking the spot of MDF, like Maryland Death Fest. And it's Cannibal Corpse, Napalm Death, Dying Fetus, High on Fire are kind of the headliners. And I think that should be really cool.
I was about to say, that sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, man. Cannibal crushes every time. I just saw them in December. And then we're going to do a listening party that Season of Mist set up for us at a bar. And that's where Tombs is playing, actually. So that's where we'll run into them. So it'll be the Black Flame Eternal listening session. We'll have merch and people can talk to us and whatever. And then after, some bands will play. And I think Tombs is one of those bands. So that should be cool. We're hopefully working on a little Florida run right after the release. And then we're working on a bigger tour that will be hopefully one of the openers for, hasn't been announced, but it's likely that it'll happen. I think it's September. So that'll be kind of the big tour after the release. So hopefully it's still going to happen. It's been in the works for a while. Booking takes forever and all the logistical shit that they have to do. So I haven't heard much recently, but I know it's being worked on. And then after that, I don't know. I mean, we want to tour as much as we can. I want to get to Europe. I want to do festivals over there. Katie's pushing to get us on a couple festivals over there, and
she's got some pretty good connects now as well. So.
Yeah, for sure. Like,
I mean, if you guys could get onto like Inferno or Beyond the Gates, that would be absolutely.
That's the goal, and that's what she's been talking about. So fingers crossed. I think it was Inferno that we were pushing for, but you never know. And things always kind of ramp up more once the album comes out. We only have a single out, then we're going to release another single the end of March, and then another one in April. So, but yeah, so that's the goal. There's some talks of some festival stuff next year. That should be pretty cool. I think Milwaukee Metal Fest is back. So that's kind of a goal to get on that. And, Psycho Vegas is always good, but the goal for us is to get more like bigger band opening slots, because I think that helps you out a lot. And it's sort of a trade-off. You do, your opening slot and you get some new fans, then you go out on your own and you do your headlining. So it's kind of a trade-off that you need to do back and forth. But that's definitely the goal for this album.
Well, dude, I genuinely do think this record is has got all the potential to do big things for you. I know Katie is a massive believer in it as well, and it's
thanks, man, yeah.
Your success is always going to be built around who you hitch your wagon to, right? So, and if she likes it, I'm sure you guys are going to do very well. And cool, thanks, I'll be banging the drum for it on my end as well. So
awesome, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Awesome, man. Great to catch up with you again as always. And like I said, keep me posted on whether you guys do come to Europe. But we'll catch up again down the road, no doubt.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe after the album comes out.
Definitely. All right, brother.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Talk
to you later. All right, see you.
You just listened to Invictus off Black Flame Eternal, the upcoming Cloak record that drops on May the 26th through Season of Mist Records. Link to the Cloak Bandcamp will be in the description to the podcast. So if you head over there and you buy yourself some music or you buy yourself some merch, then let Scott and the lads know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. And of course, a big thanks and a shout out to Scott for coming on the show. Always a blast catching up with him. And like I said at the top of the show, he is always welcome on here. So he will definitely be back. And having listened to that album end to end, I can tell you right now, it does not disappoint. The best record in the Cloak discography by no small stretch of the imagination. Speaking of new records, I'm not going to do any reviews this week because there's been a whole bunch of new stuff coming out, and I've just not had the time to kind of go through it enough to be able to have any sort of properly informed conversation with you about it. But what I will say is a couple of things that's on my radar and that I'm listening to right now. Spirit of Possession out of Portland put out a record called Of the Sign on Profound Law Records. Really cool black metal with a bit of black and roll swagger thrown in for good measure. Spectral Lore out of Greece put out 11 Days. That Greek black metal scene, I think, is just going from strength to strength right now. We've discovered quite a few bands on the news rant, most recently Burial Hordes, which, I was super impressed with. Exciting things happening in Greece. I think everybody was expecting the new Immortal record to drop this week as well. It hasn't. They've just put out a single. We'll listen to that single in a couple of minutes. But I just thought I would mention that because it was down on my list as a record to look out for this week. The new Ne Obliviscaris, Exul is the name of the record. That has dropped on Season of Mist. Not listened to that as much yet, but I have been paying a lot of attention to Zen of Ne Obliviscaris' other project, Omega Infinity, and that new Omega Infinity record. It takes a couple of listens to get your head around, but when you're into it, it is absolutely fucking fantastic. The new Mork record, Dipet, is out on Peaceful Records. Of course, I had Thomas Eriksson of Mork on the podcast not too long ago. I've been getting some really, really great feedback about that episode, and he's a really nice guy. Likewise, the new Mork record, from what I've heard so far, does not disappoint. And then a record that, if you follow the news rant, you saw me absolutely flipping out over. Angerot put out the Profound Recreant on Redefining Darkness Records. Really filthy, blackened death metal out of South Dakota. And I've listened to that record about 2-3 times now. Initial impressions are very, very positive. But anyway, like I said, I'll do a proper roundup of all of my favorite new releases next week. In the meantime, though, if you thought that the last Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie was the best in the series, then it's time for you to get to stepping, because this is my weekly news rant. All right, folks, we start, as always, on the greatest metal website on internets today, Metal Storm. By the way, it is a beautiful sunny day in the UK for a change. It's been fucking miserable for the last couple of weeks, but it seems my cat is probably even more excited than I am about that. So if during the intro you heard what sounded like cats mowing, it's her busy, I think, just having a shout at strangers outside, by which strangers I mean the horses. Anyway, we start off with Warbringer, who have released a video for the song Unraveling. LA Thrashers Warbringer have released a music video for Unraveling, taken from their last studio album, 2020's Weapons of Tomorrow. The video was released to coincide with the band's month-long European tour, which began last Thursday, March the 23rd in Belgium, and wraps up in the Netherlands on April the 30th. I didn't really pay much attention to Unraveling, and considering that I haven't, we may as well just give the song a quick listen now. So this is... actually, sorry, I said I haven't listened much to Unraveling. I didn't listen much to the record, Weapons of Tomorrow. So we'll listen to Unraveling right now.
That's
just excuse the racket in the background. Something is being delivered outside, so she'll shut up in a second, and I'm not restarting the recording for this. But listening to that Warbringer record, or that Warbringer song, not bad. I mean, it's not. There's nothing particularly original or special about it, and they are no power trip. But yeah, like I said, it's not bad. I can certainly see. I mean, if you look at the concert footage that they've included there, there's people going, motherfuckers are busting out wild. I can understand why they would do so. The biggest thing always for me with a band like this is there has to be something catchy, and there has to be a good breakdown. That makes or breaks a band. That was one of the things that Power Trip had absolutely in spades. They had those absolutely killer breakdowns, and they just had such a fucking cool stage presence. I am very lucky and very happy that I got to see them. Yeah, not bad. I'm not going to carry on listening to it because I think we've probably heard what they have to offer us. But anyways. All right, next up we've got Jag Panzer streaming the lyric video for their new single. Jag Panzer is not really a band I've paid a huge amount of attention to over the years, but every time that I've gotten a promo or I've seen a song floating around that I have listened to, I've never not enjoyed it, even though power metal isn't necessarily my thing. But let's give this a listen. It says here, after unveiling new album details, The Hallowed, earlier this month, Jag Panzer now offer in listening the first single, Onward We Toil, with accompanying lyric video clip. The band comment, Onward We Toil tells the story of the people and animals in the concept pushing through adversity to reach their goal of finding the Hallowed. The creatures, known as the Jaw, can be heard in the beginning of the song, and the epic chorus illustrates the team working together as one. So I don't know whether this is a fantasy story or a corporate self-help video, but anyway, let's give it a quick listen. I've heard enough. It's better than The Last Creator fucking abortion, I'll tell you that much. But it's still not something that's going to necessarily be my go-to band. Okay, let's look at Nightmare next. Now, this is a band that has been recommended to me on multiple occasions by the Golden One, Evan Hopper. And by the way, Evan and Mike Hill did a really great episode of Everything Went Black last week. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure you listen to that episode. Fantastic stuff. But yeah, Evan is extremely high on this band, and what I've heard about it so far, I've been pretty impressed with as well. It says here, technical death metal purveyors Nightmare are premiering Hammer of Desolation, the newest single from the band's upcoming album Deformity Adrift, set to be released on the 5th of May through Vendetta Records. Let's give it a whirl. I mean, that is fucking so heavy. I think most normal people's brains would be melted after about 5 minutes of this. And I think it's slightly misleading to call them technical death metal purveyors. I mean, there is some, very, very serious black metal influence here. It kind of reminds me a little bit of I'm trying to think, if the Acacia Strain channeled Deathspell Omega, then this is what we may end up with. But I love what I'm hearing. I think it sounds absolutely fucking badass. Aggressive, atmospheric, like the riffing, like the melody. It's got a really sort of almost overpowering feel to it. So yeah, very, very, very cool stuff. Let's get back to it. I'll tell you what I think this is. This is the US's answer to Ulcerate. I like just listening to this now. I had a quick gander at where these guys are based. So they come out of Tampa, Florida. I think that's the best compliment I could possibly pay any band. Absolutely, this is the North American answer to Ulcerate. Really, really, really great stuff. And also kudos to whoever did the music video, because unlike the, old men running bare-assed across the beach, that seems to be the trend of a lot of the metal fraternity at the moment. There's actually, I think this music video probably cost them about $5 to make. But it's done really, really well, really creative, in keeping with the band's name. I mean, it looks fucking nightmarish. If you watch this on YouTube, you'll know what I mean. If you haven't watched it, make sure you go check it out. But yeah, it's basically strobe light, black and white, some fucking psycho in a hoodie standing with a hammer looking to torture somebody. But great stuff. Great stuff. Evan's opinion validated, I would suggest. But yeah, I really, really like that. Okay, let's move on. Thy Art is Murder premiere Until There Is No Longer track. Australian deathcore formation Thy Art is Murder is next up to reveal their contribution to the forthcoming three-way split EP with Fit for an Autopsy. It's Saturday, folks. It's Saturday morning early, so Fit for an Autopsy and Malevolence, titled The Aggression Sessions. The new track, Until There Is No Longer, is streaming as a visualizer video. I've never been the biggest fan of Thy Art is Murder, but then again, I've also never been the biggest fan of deathcore. I think there's two bands that I make, a real, or that are a real exception. Despised Icon is one. The other is the Acacia Strain. And I mean, even those bands, they don't have a flawless track record as far as I'm concerned. But, like I've said before, there's no point in me only listening or picking out stuff that I know I'm likely to enjoy. So let's give this a quick whirl. Got to tell you, I'm not hating that at all. I don't know the direction that they took on their last couple of records because I mostly ignored them. But I certainly, from the songs that I've heard this band do, this is a bit of a difference for them, or at least an evolution in their sound. It's more melodic, more black metal influence, which is an instant winner in my book. There was always. I think the reason that I was put off by them, at least on the last record I heard, and we're talking like probably 6-7 years ago, there was always a monotony to the music, and that it wasn't my thing. But this is something pretty cool. I can get on board with this for sure. Let's give it another 60 seconds. Well, last year was full of surprises. We all saw I changed my view on Watain and on Dark Funeral both. I mean, at least as far as their last records were concerned. So apparently the big surprise of this year is that Thy Art Is Murder has produced a song that I can get on board with. I don't know about Fit for an Autopsy or Malevolence. The last Malevolence songs I heard I thought were not the best. And Fit for an Autopsy, kind of same deal. Good for what they do, but not necessarily the kind of thing that I'm going to listen to, as a go-to. Okay, right, let's move on. Baby Metal have presented a lyric video for Mirror Mirror. That, I said, I'm not gonna pick and choose what I want to hear, but I'm not gonna force you guys to listen to that fucking bullshit. Nor am I going to. I think everybody should be able to do whatever they want, and kudos to them for coming up or hitting on a nerve and getting people to like it. The people who like it are, I think, of a certain mindset and persuasion that really probably means they don't listen to this podcast, because they're also not the types of people I'd necessarily be friends with. Okay, so let's check and see if there's anything else. Nile are recording tunes for album number 10. No music, but we can see a photo of two reasonably proportioned men sitting in the studio recording. It says, just a couple of weeks prior to the beginning of their extensive touring in Europe and Latin America, Nile frontman Carl Sanders and guitarist Brian Kingsland have checked in from the studio, where they are laying down new tracks for their upcoming 10th full-length effort. If they're about to go on tour, and they're only kind of doing initial tracks now, then I would assume it's going to be a while before we hear that record. But looking forward to it, because I thought the last one was fucking absolutely brilliant. And I would love to get Carl Sanders on the podcast. I have spoken to him for Chronicles of Chaos, and he was a very nice guy. I thought he was a good dude. And he, I mean, as in terms of technical guitar playing prowess, I mean, the guy is fucking mind-blowing. Fallujah drummer Andrew Baird has decided to step down. Californians Fallujah shared the news that their longtime drummer Andrew Baird has decided to step down from the band to focus on his personal life and family. Andrew has been part of the band since 2007. The statement from the band reads as follows: "Today we regret to inform you all that our brother Andrew has decided to step down from the band in order to focus on his personal life and family. There's no bad blood and we support him in his decision. Andrew has been in Fallujah since 2007 and has put in immeasurable amounts of hard work and sacrifice to help us get where we are today. Despite having some massive shoes to fill, Fallujah will carry on with new material and tours as planned. Thank you to all for understanding and sticking with us." I might be imagining this, but I think Scott actually might have spoken about Andrew and the connection that the two of those guys have musically when he was on this podcast. Pretty hard pill or bitter pill to swallow, I think, if you're Fallujah. And it's not, you're not kicking out great drummers behind every rock. But I'm sure they'll find somebody good, and I'm glad to see the level of success that they've had with this new record. Good to see them go on tour with Psychroptic as well, because I think that was a great match, and I know, at least from the photos I saw, the posts I saw, that that tour went over really, really well. All right, Swans have announced The Beggar, their new album, and they premiered a new song. Now, I mean, anybody who's anybody, when you ask them who your biggest influence is, Swans is always the name that comes up, or at least one of the names that comes up. We've spoken to Shane Embry, or everyone from Shane Embry to, God knows who else, and they will all cite this band. So I'm curious to hear what their new music sounds like. It says here, experimental rock outfit Swans will release their upcoming album, The Beggar, on the 23rd of June through Young Guard Records and Mute Bank. You can listen to a premiere track from it titled Paradise Is Mine. Michael Gira had this to say: after numerous pandemic-induced cancellations of tours for the previous Swans album, leaving meaning and an apparent bottomless pit of waiting, and the strange disorientation that came with the sudden but interminable forced isolation, I decided it was time to write songs for a new Swans album and forget about everything else. They came relatively easily, always informed by the suspicion that these could be my last. When I finally was able to travel, song in hand, to Berlin to work with my friends recording this record, the feeling was akin to the moment in The Wizard of Oz when the film changes from black and white to color. Now I'm feeling quite optimistic. My favorite color is pink. I hope you enjoy the album. My favorite color is black. And we'll see whether or not I enjoy the song. Let's give it a listen right now. I know I've run that one a little longer than I normally would, but it's obviously taking a while to get going. But good stuff. I like the atmosphere. I like the vibe of the song. I will admit I have never really listened to Swans much, and not for any other reason than it's just never been something that I've either had the desire to dig into, or something that's kind of crossed my path, and I've been steered towards listening to it, but. Having said that, you can hear that there are a lot of, even just with that little bit, you can hear where bands, or what they're referring to when they're talking about a Swans influence. And I also think that, again, given how influential they are, maybe it's time for me to educate myself. So drop me a note in the comments or send me a DM and tell me what Swans records you think I should check out if I am a noob, as the youth say online. to Swans. I've jumped to the 5-minute mark of the song. Let's hear if we're any further ahead to where we were the last time round. No, we're not. So I'm going to go on to the next article. But like I said, I'm not hating that at all. I quite like it. Okay, I spoke about this earlier, new Immortal. And I mean, I also won't lie. I know most of the time when I record this, you're hearing my first reaction completely unfiltered to a song. I have naturally already listened to the new Immortal track. But it says here, as part of their forthcoming studio album War Against All, Norway's Immortal premiere a lyric video for the title track as the first official single. The new outing is due on May the 26th, 2023 via Nuclear Blast Records. I'll give you my opinion, but let's give it just 60 seconds first. I keep coming back to the same conclusion when I listen to this, and that is that I don't mind the song at all, but I've heard Immortal do this. I've heard them do it way better on Battles in the North. I would even argue on Blizzard Beasts, which, funnily enough, I think this is probably the third or fourth time I'm listening to that song. It reminds me of, there's something about it that reminds me of Blizzard Beasts. Maybe in the kind of dryness of the production. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about it that just recalls my feelings when I heard that record for the first time. But the point is, I've heard them do this many times. I've heard them do it better on other records. This is not a bad song by any stretch of the imagination. But as much as I'm happy that Immortal are back, and I'm glad Immortal still exists, I kind of would have wanted a little bit more. That's where I'm landing on this. I don't know what you guys think, but we'll give it another 30 seconds. I'm very open to hearing the rest of the record. I hope the rest of the record sounds good, but I also hope that they do a little bit more to convince me on the rest of the record that they're not a band that are past their prime, way past their prime. Yeah, so pretty interesting breakdown there, but again, like I said, I've heard them do this before, and I've heard them do it better. Likewise, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but you think about it from the perspective of what's coming out in black metal today. The level of complexity in the way that people write music, and how original some of the bands have been that we've listened to on this podcast. I mean, you don't want to compare because Immortal are their own thing, and at the end of the day, you could have the most simplistic song, and if the vibe is right, the song is going to be great. We got that with Onfort a couple of weeks ago, and with Mine in Verver, I would say as well. But like I said, at the moment, that's a solid 6 out of 10. I don't think it would be, if I had to give it an out of 10 rating, I don't think it would merit any more than that. Okay, we move on. Olkoth are a blackened death metal ensemble from South Carolina, and they have revealed details of their debut full-length effort entitled At the Eye of Chaos. It'll be set free on May the 26th, same as Immortal, via Everlasting Spew Records, recorded and produced by Olkoth at Hexology Studios, mixed and mastered by Ronnie Bjornstrom at Bjornstrom, Lud and Production. For a first preview, give a spin to the album's opening track, Alzared. That is unfortunately, though, a Bandcamp link, so not going to bother. Sorry, guys, but the audio, the audible health and car windscreens of my legions is more important than me listening to that song. Let's see if there's anything else. I don't really think that there is, and if there isn't, then it may well be time for us to head to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. Malevolent Creation are writing material for their next effort, it says here. During a recent interview with Metal Bite magazine, Phil Fasciana, the founding member guitarist of Death Metal Veterans, Malevolent Creation confirmed that he's currently writing material for the band's upcoming album following their 2019 release, The 13th Beast. Fasciana shared the following during the interview. I'm currently writing new songs for the next Malevolent Creation album, and alongside our vocalist, second guitarist Darren Miller, who I plan on firing in the next 6 months. that part I added in. Drummer Ronnie Palmer and bassist we're getting together here in Florida soon to record demos of the new material and rehearse a new 30-song set list of songs from all our albums. Many songs have not been played live in a long time or ever. In some cases, we have just too many songs in the last 32 years. I'm only trying to write some extremely heavy songs, which what a shock. We didn't think that Malevolent Creation were going to put out a record of unplugged folk ballads. That will come across great when played live. Of course, they are very fast with a few mid-tempo arrangements to keep the music interesting. Yeah, I mean, I thought 13th Beast was a decent record. I mean, I don't really think that Malevolent Creation have ever put out a complete stinker, to be honest. But the days of me getting excited, or out of my skin at the idea of a Malevolent Creation record is not high. And I also, I made a joke about it, but we'll see how long Darren Miller lasts. I think there's just some folks who just don't play particularly well with others, and it's not, it's not like this isn't pointing fingers or anything like that. Obviously, everybody knows I'm friends with Lee. It's got nothing to do with that. We've spoken about that with regards to a lot of other people on this podcast as well already. Like if you see a constant churn of members in a band, at some point it's like it's like that relationship saying, it's not you, it's me, or at some point you kind of have to say that. Some people are just not meant to be in a band with other people. Okay, folks, I think we have pretty much exhausted our options. And again, apologies for the devil dog barking here in the background. Somebody made a comment the other day and said that she has pretty much become like a guest host on the podcast now. So I'm going to pause this for 10 seconds and just get this problem solved. I'm back, and we're heading to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. For those concerned, don't worry, the dog is still alive. I've just moved her to another room. Okay, first up, we've got Steel Panther hasn't been affected by cancel culture. People that come to our shows, they know what to expect. Steel Panther hasn't been affected by cancel culture. It says here in a brand new interview with Canada's The Metal Voice singer Michael Starr of California glam metal jokesters, Steel Panther, whose songs contain what some critics say are racist, misogynistic, and lewd lyrics, was asked if he and his bandmates have been affected by cancel culture, a term which describes efforts to shun, silence, or demonetize people who express unpopular beliefs. He responded, as transcribed by Blabbermouth, "No, not really. I mean, I don't want to say not really. I would just say, the only pushback we got was for a plugin that Steel Panther guitarist Satchel designed called the Pussy Melter." That's fucking brilliant. The Pussy Melter. And it was on the TC Electronic website, and a girl guitar player saw it, and she got extremely offended by it. And she wrote that the company, and they took the plugin off because one person was upset with it. And so Satchel came up with the idea, and he said, why don't we just make a fucking guitar pedal? So we got into the guitar pedal business. Man, that thing flew off the shelves so quick because people were trying to cancel us. We only made I think 10,000 of them or something, just a small order of them, because it's expensive to get that capital to make them all. So we made 10,000, and we made it in a limited edition, and it cut off at a certain number, and we sold them all in 2 weeks. Starr went on to say that people who attend Steel Panther concerts are fully aware of what they are going to see at the performances, including girls being invited up on stage to flash their breasts and single entendre lyrics that seemingly objectify women and demean everybody. I mean, I've spoken about it so many times now, I'm almost bored of it, but when did the metal scene become so fucking oversensitive? This was the same scene that was standing up for Blackie Lawless's right to sing Fuck Like a Beast back in the 80s, and who used to use the phrase, if you don't like it, don't buy it, or don't come to our shows. And yet now, the way in which this article is written, it just has an underlying sense of extreme sniveling to me. I don't even think there should be a conversation. Again, Steel Panther shows are reasonably expensive. If you don't want to go, then don't go. If you're going to be offended by something that they sing about, don't listen to their music. There are millions of bands that you can listen to instead. But again, there's this weird, egalitarianism where everybody thinks that they should be able to have an opinion about everything, and that we all need to we all need to have this collective consensus over what we can and can't do, or can and can't listen to, and it is absolutely fucking ridiculous. It's It's kind of given away right there at the very start of the article as well. California glam metal jokesters. It is a joke, you absolute fucking idiots. We have here in the UK, a trend that is sweeping the nation, whereby they, increasingly are trying to, have comedians who make jokes that they deem to be transphobic or misogynistic, or whatever the case may be, banned from clubs, and in some cases even arrested, which I just think is completely and utterly batshit fucking insane. Because when you actually see the content of what they've been offended by, it's not somebody standing on stage going, you should run out with a machete and kill a trans person, ha ha ha. It's generally speaking pretty funny jokes, and knowing a couple of trans folks myself, most of them think it's fucking funny as well. But there's this outrage culture and this currency of victimhood that reigns throughout throughout our modern society, through Western society. And, much like the politicians sponging off of our taxes, these people are like pigs at the trough. They think that, they're going to enrich themselves by claiming to be victims, get themselves, I don't know, whether it's fucking book deals or increased profile on social media or whatever other bullshit. There's clearly an incentive structure in place for people to act like a bunch of fucking whiny punks. And I think it is very, very detrimental to society. And I think it's just going to get worse. And the other thing that I would say, on the flip side to it, you take the J.K. Rowling scenario as a good example, or even the Vicky Hungerford, the promoter of Bloodstock, you take her example. I still contend neither of those two people said anything that I would deem particularly hateful. But even if even if what they said was hateful, you are not proving yourself to be on the side of love and tolerance when your go-to is to threaten a woman with rape because you didn't like something that she said. And we know after J.K. Rowling's comment, and I think, the actual quote was, I want everybody to be able to live their authentic lives as happily as possible, but you can't take away from my experience as a biological woman. And death threats, rape threats, I mean, how does something like that merit that kind of a response? I find it mind-boggling. And again, I'm not pushing for the persecution of anybody here. I'm in complete agreement. I think everybody should be able to live their lives in whatever way that they choose, as long as they're doing so within the confines of the law, and as long as they're not making it my issue, and as long as they're not hurting anybody. But I think that when we get to a place where you can get so utterly offended by, or reflexively offended by something that somebody has said, that you want to threaten them with rape and threaten them with death. It's fucking nuts. And to do that in the name of love, I mean, you are out of your fucking mind. And I've said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. We need to stamp this out in the metal scene, and we need to actually start being more brave, I think, about talking about these things. Because I think intention matters here. This is not coming from a place of ill intent directed at anybody, but this is saying, as adults, in a free society, we have agency to decide what bands we want to listen to. We have agency to decide which shows we attend. We had this fight with the PMRC in the 1980s, and we won. And the metal scene and society generally was better off for it. We're not going to have this fucking fight again. This is something that was settled back in the 80s. If you're gonna bring Puritanism under different branding into the metal scene, then fuck off. That's my take on that. And I think Steel Panther is fucking hysterical. So it's I will proudly support that band. Anyways, right, we move on. James Hetfield on Metallica. Shout out to Mike Scandato. Individually, we are really average players. In a new interview with Cigar Aficionado magazine, Metallica frontman James Hetfield once again repeated his belief that he and his bandmates are not the greatest musicians in the world. I know individually we're all really average players, but when you put us together, something happens, he said. Something really happens. Getting up and jamming with people is like a nightmare for me. Getting up and jamming with people is like a nightmare for me. I thought he loves it. So I don't know what he's on about there. Hetfield also spoke about his struggles with stage fright during Metallica's early days and how he overcame his performance anxiety in the band's later years. Early shows were really difficult. I was so shy, he admitted. I didn't want to talk. I'd have the other guys in the band introduce the songs. Now I feel so comfortable up there. It's so weird. Sitting down one-on-one with someone is a lot more anxiety-ridden than standing up in front of 20,000 people or 10,000 people. That's an interesting take from him because, obviously Scott and I spoke about it in terms of, being a front man. I still think, if you had to do like top 5 frontmen of all time, I would go as far as to say all genres, but certainly metal. James Hetfield, circa 1989, is peerless. Peerless. The only guy that maybe comes close to him is Phil Anselmo. But beyond that, there is no contest. So, for him to talk about how shy he was, it's interesting. Also, though, again, as I've said, old James is, just doesn't excite me quite as much as midlife James. So, midlife James, liked him a beer, and I understand that was a toxic habit that he needed to kick, but, the beer drinking, foul-mouthed dude standing on stage yelling at the audience and being a total fucking badass from start to finish, that's the James that I responded to. That's generally the kind of frontman I respond to. There are guys that can pull off, not really saying much on stage or not really having much interaction with the audience. But if I go to a show, what I always kind of crave and yearn for is that energy, with between band and audience, and a lot of that is led by the frontman. Anyway, okay, we move on. Cradle of Filth's collaboration with Ed Sheeran could see the light of day this summer. I don't give a fuck. Paradise Lost recruits drummer Guido Zima Montanarini. It says here, British Gothic metal pioneers Paradise Lost have welcomed Guido Zima Montanarini as their official drummer, completing the band's lineup again. Paradise Lost guitarist Greg McIntosh comments, "We welcome Guido as Paradise Lost's new drummer. He cut his teeth for us on our European tour at the end of 2022. Guido did such a good job that we've decided to make him our new drummer, and he will be playing on all upcoming Paradise Lost shows and working on new material with us for our next album due out next year." Happy that there's a new album due out next year. Also, not necessarily, somewhat Paradise Lost related. I saw that they're about to go on tour with Primordial. So letting the cat out of the bag, the interview I hinted at potentially doing face-to-face last week was with the Alan Averill of Primordial. I was in Dublin for work, would have had a couple of hours that I could siphon off in the evening. But unfortunately, it didn't happen because he's in the midst of mixing the new Primordial record. So we're hopefully going to do a recorded interview, and then at some point down the road do something face to face. But we have spoken. Like I said, hopefully he'll be on the show at some point in the very near future, because that Verminous Serpent record fucking slays. But it would have been very, very cool to do face-to-face, but obviously duty calls. And I will also say I've been fascinated by these podcast episodes he's been doing on his show about the recording of the new Primordial record, and particularly around stuff like, how they set up the instruments and all that sort of thing. And the sound they're going for, it actually made me go back and listen to Exile Amongst the Ruins on the hi-fi over here, and you can really hear the dynamic range kind of come out, and I guess how their approach differs to the sort of over-compressed setup that you hear from a lot of bands nowadays. Okay, anyway. Exodus Slayer guitarist Gary Holt to release a fabulous disaster memoir. Hachette Books has acquired the upcoming memoir from legendary thrash metal guitarist Gary Holt, A Fabulous Disaster from the Garage to Madison Square Garden the Hard Way. It's described in a press release as a no-holds-barred memoir from the preeminent thrasher's life in metal, from its humble but not quiet beginnings in the San Francisco Bay Area through today's current resurgence in worldwide popularity as he lived big, played fast, and crashed hard. Written collaboration with Adam Tepper-Dellin. Holt shared the news of his upcoming memoir on social media, writing, "Super stoked. The announcement in book circles has gone out today, so I'm sharing it in my circle. The book about my life is underway, from the beginnings of Exodus and thrash metal to the drug-fueled fall, to the unexpected and tragic circumstances that led me to Slayer, to join Slayer, to the bounce back to Madison Square Garden, blah, blah, blah." Most of us know the story, but it will be interesting to read. I'm pretty sure at least 60% of it is going to be I took drugs, but it'll be interesting to read. Okay, on the very opposite end of the rock excess spectrum is Henry Rollins, who's put his life savings into a project which he hopes to launch next year in Nashville. In a new interview with The Guardian, punk rock icon Henry Rollins once again discussed his decision to stop making music 17 years ago after spending well over a decade recording and touring with Rollins' band, his alt-rock powerhouse. He said, "I stopped processing ideas in terms of lyrics. One day I woke up and I thought, I'm done. My manager flipped out, but I've never looked back. I didn't want to become a human jukebox playing old songs, so I filled the space the band took with films and TV, and now my shows, my radio show, and writing. At this point, I wouldn't go back on stage with the band for anything." Rollins also talked about the major project he moved to Nashville to realize, as he originally revealed in his recent Sick book. Asked what the project is, Rollins said, "It's something I've been working on for a couple of years with my manager Heidi May, and I've put my life savings into it. All I can say is we're looking at launching 14 months from now in Nashville, and it will make people smile until their faces hurt." I don't know if he's going the same way as Joe Rogan, who just launched the Comedy Mothership in Austin and doing like his own, gig venue or something like that. We'll see. I haven't read Sick. So, I mean, Henry Rollins, I sometimes find him to be a little bit of a know-it-all. I do think people should stay in their lanes. I mean, I think people could potentially point at me and say I'm a know-it-all as well, but I do consciously make it a point of not talking about anything that I don't know nothing about. Now, that all being said, I am a very big fan of particularly the Rollins band era. Those earlier records, The End of Silence, Wait, I think is fucking magnificent. And I think that Come In and Burn, for all the flack that it took at the time that it came out, I think is a fucking sensational record. Right down to the much maligned single, The End of Something, which I think is brilliant. And I think, for me, part of the charm when it comes to Henry's musical output with Rollins' band has always been his lyrics. Interesting that he mentions that as well. There's something about it that I think speaks to the masculine life experience. And what I think anybody that is familiar with his music knows what I mean. There's things that we all go through as men, whether it's, naivety in relationships, our approach to life, things that, frustrate, try to break us down, try to create a degree of hopelessness in us, or threaten to create hopelessness in us. And he deals with all of those things I think in a very unfiltered way, and in a way that, at least to me personally, spoke to me very, very directly, which is why I always, I always responded very well to his music. And actually musically, they're fucking great as well. I mean, very original. I don't think there's been a band that has ever sounded anything like them, nor will there be. That last record that they did, I wasn't all that keen on that, but you cannot go wrong with The End of Silence, Wait, and Come In and Burn. If you're having a shitty day in particular, throw on those records. It is like free therapy. Let's check out the rest of the article. It says here, less than 2 years ago, Rollins discussed his decision to retire from making music during an appearance on producer Rick Rubin's Broken Record podcast. At the time, he said, the smart thing I did as a younger man was one day I woke up in my bed and I went, I'm done with music. I don't hate it. I just have no more lyrics. There's no more toothpaste in the tube. I called my manager at the time and I said, I'm done with music, and 15% of that was a good thing for him. He was like, no. I was like, yes. And so luckily I had enough movies, voiceover, documentary work, writing, talking, where I just filled in. Now I'm busier than ever, but I walked away before I had to start saying, hey kids, remember this one? So I didn't have to go out there and put on the dog and yelp for my dinner. I get where he's coming from as well. And I respect somebody who, makes that decision when they feel the time is right to make the decision. And actually, again, if you think about it in the way I've just described his records, last record wasn't all that great. Maybe you wanna pull the plug on that before you get to a place where, where people start to kind of unanimously go, another Henry Rollins record. Yeah, who gives a shit? So anyways, we'll see what he does with this project of his. I can tell you right now, I've got another project coming up. Tomorrow, I'm celebrating my birthday, and tonight I'm headed over to one of my friends for a barbecue. I think for my legions, this is around about time that I'm going to be wrapping up the news rant for this week. If you have stuck around until the very end, you have my utmost respect and my utmost love. Thank you very, very much. And I will be back next week. Guest to be confirmed. I have a couple in the pipeline. But the fact that I dared even hint at Alan Averill coming on the show and it fell through suggests to you guys why I'm fucking paranoid about these things. But anyways, I'm going to close off the show with one of my favorite black metal bands ever. It'll come as no surprise that band is Akhlys. Whilst that is absolutely eviscerating your ears, I hope that whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.